Hello YouTube, what's going on? I'm the Motley GM. My name is Pete. This is the introduction to my channel. Hopefully this doesn't go too terribly. This is the first time I'm posting anything like this. Who am I? I'm just an old Gen Xer who works in healthcare and loves tabletop role-playing games and wanted to make a channel where I reach out to a small community of people who like to do this the way I do. How do I like to do this? I like to play a bunch of different games in a bunch of different genres. And I'm the GM for most of that. And I get to play too, because I'm blessed by having a wonderful group of great players. Shout out to those guys. If any of you are watching, I love you. But I just love tabletop role-playing games. I love the tabletop community, especially when we're talking OSR and independent games. And that's what I really want to promote on my channel. I realize that the audience I'm looking for is small. Hence the reason why I'm not really doing this as a money-making thing. I really just want to create a community of people who love games, who want to be creative with each other, who want to bounce ideas off each other, maybe even create groups together one of these days. We'll see how this all goes. I do hope for my channel to be a resource for GMs to simplify their games so that they can have more fun. Because I believe when GMs have more fun, players have more fun. At least that's been my experience. With all that aside, I also just do this because I know the players that I have probably get tired of me talking about games all the time. And this is a great way for me to engage in other people that may also want to talk about these subjects, talk about games, and ways that we can go about it in a much more simple and fun way where I'm not just talking the ears off of my players. I'm engaging with people who want to engage in that kind of conversation. Again, I understand this is a small audience, but if you're a GM, if you love different styles of games, different genres, and you want to kind of get on board with somebody that's going to show you how to keep that simple, how to keep things flowing, and just how to make an overall fun game, because at the end, that's what this is about, having fun. It's not about producing content to make money or making products that you can sell. It's about having fun with your players and allowing yourself as a GM to also have fun. So a very brief overview of my experience. I first played Dungeons & Dragons when I was 11 and 86 on a very short game. Between 1986 and about 2006, I didn't really play very much. I moved around a lot. My life is just weird. There's no real explanation for it. I just moved around a lot, and I didn't really stick with any groups or anything like that. I did experience the game in short forms after that. In the middle there, I experienced 3 and 3.5 edition at one point, and the game never got off the ground. But honestly, I didn't really like how crunchy it was. I didn't know that was a term at the time, but to me it was too complex, and I think that's when I fell in love with the rules light being the way to go. I did start with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons when I played in 86. And I dabbled with the other ones. Again, I looked through 3.5 quite a bit, never actually played it. I got a chance to see 4th edition. Again, I was mostly interested in the artwork, and most of these, the game seemed to be too complex for me personally, but I love the artwork. I'm still a huge fan of the fantasy artwork you find in these games. So that always kept me in. I'm also a big lover of sword and sorcery and fantasy literature, movies, shows, all that stuff. I've always been a big fan of that stuff, so there's always been a small connection there. It wasn't until 2016-17 when I bought the starter set for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, which was the Fandelver adventure, if anybody's ever played that one before, that I started GMing, because I actually originally got it hoping somebody else would run it, but that didn't happen, so I started running it, which started my GM, I don't want to say career, but hobby, I guess would be the better term for it. But also I realized how much I enjoyed running the game, but how much I enjoyed it when it was more simple. Now, I'll go into a video on its own of why I left Dungeons & Dragons proper to do other things, but suffice to say, that's when my GMing started, was with Dungeons & Dragons. I have since moved on into other games, but from about 2016 to the present, I've been GMing pretty consistently for multiple different kinds of groups, and I feel over that time I found a style of my own that's essentially a conglomeration of inspiration for the channel and some of my own thoughts all rolled into one. And that's what my channel essentially is going to be, as far as going over GMing tips and stuff like that. So as a GM, I like rulings over rules, rule zero, rules of cool. or rule of cool, I guess I should say, which basically rulings over rules and rule zero almost the same thing. It just means that the rules are more guidelines and the GM has the basic say at the end, and that's that. There's no argument to it. GM is the one that's in adjudicating the rules. They get the final say. Rule of cool is if you're a PC and you do something that's just so cool, it has to happen. I let it happen most of the time and move on. I don't think about it too much. We're telling stories here and we're using rules as a vehicle to do that. So that's what I really promote here. I promote scenarios, not full stories. If you want to write a full story, be an author. If you want to play a game, create scenarios and obstacles and NPCs that are causing those things and allow your players to figure out how to deal with it. Make sure it's something that it affects the player character in some way, even if you have to make it where it's like what they're doing is causing you to not have food or cutting off your money supply, whatever it is. Make sure it gets to them, and that they have to do something about it. So scenarios over stories. I don't believe in prepping more than 1 or 2 sessions ahead, keeping it kind of simple. I only do what's necessary. I let the players fill in some of the gaps as they go along because they're the ones that are really telling the story. Players are always going to do what you don't expect them to. So I don't take anything personal. I don't take anything too serious, and I let them kind of lead the way. That's the way I GM in a nutshell. When it comes to prepping and stuff like that, I enjoy prepping worlds because I love world building. I like making NPCs and things like that. So I may do more than is necessary, but in all honesty, I just try to keep it to the ones that are going to be important to the story and maybe have a handful of like non-important NPCs on the side. And yes, do those people sometimes become characters of their own? Of course they do, but just be ready for that. Being flexible and being open is one of the paramounts of my style of GMing, because players are always going to do what you don't expect. So if you're not flexible and if you can't improv a little or aren't willing to learn to improv a little, my style of GMing might be a little difficult for you. But if you're creative, if you're open and you're quick thinking, you might really enjoy the way that I do things. And I hope to, because I do promote a lot of freestyle and improv in my style of GMing. So I don't like to be an adversarial GM, but I will play the characters. So if the character has something they want to do, an NPC I'm talking about here, a villain, BBEG as they're called, I'm going to play them faithfully to what they're doing, what their motivations are, and how far they're willing to go to get those things. I always like to combine a little bit of old school and new school because I've never been indoctrinated really into one or the other. So I combine those elements to make a game that I feel works really good. On a person-to-person level in my games and my tables, whether it's in person or online, I do a lot of virtual tabletops because I live out in the middle of nowhere, so I'm pretty isolated. But I just don't tolerate a lot of what I call negative behaviors, and we'll do a video on that. But there's, I think a lot of them are going to be common sense, and you could probably figure out most of it on your own. But once those behaviors begin and they've been given usually one chance, and it's not corrected, I just don't have them at my table anymore. And doing that for the players that are there, protecting your good players, weeding out the bad ones. I totally support that as a GM. It's what you should do because the ones that aren't causing the problems don't deserve to pay. That's just the way I do it, and that's from experience. We might go over those experiences a little more in detail down the road, but that is from experience. My preferred style of game is simple, as you may see, or as I may have driven home already. Simplified game, simple rules light. It's what I like. I'm not big into crunch. I like rules light, or what I call rules medium. Rules medium are games that have light at the core, lots of charts or other rules to supplement that might make it a little more crunchy. That's rules light to me. And then, of course, crunchy is what I call a rules heavy game. Games I don't really get into, games I won't cover a lot. I prefer D20, but I have no problems playing other dice systems. Just D20 is my favorite if I can, but I play other dice systems as well. So no problems there. However, I do think D20 is the easiest, especially if Dungeons & Dragons was your first game. My general game style is a semi-serious game where the world itself is pretty serious, pretty gritty, pretty difficult, but there's always room for humor. And I just think you should always allow room for humor. Otherwise, what's the point of having the game and having fun if you can't have some humor injected in there? Just roll with the punches. That goes back to my improv and freestyle way of GMing. So do that. I do love sword and sorcery. It's what brought me into this, my love of sword and sorcery and fantasy. However, other genres are awesome, and I totally want to promote those. You know, Weird West, Wuxia, all kinds of conglomerations of stuff. Love it all. Really want to show off some of that stuff too, if I can. I'm not going to be so much a review channel, so don't look for me to review, but I'm going to showcase, in which case I will talk and maybe gush about a game a little bit, and then go into like the specific things about it I like or that stand out to me. That's kind of more of what I'm looking to do here. The systems themselves will be up to you what you like. I'm just going to kind of recommend games that I might like the feel of it. I might like how clever it is, certain rules that they added, whatever. That's kind of what I'm into. The philosophy for the channel itself, as I stated at the beginning, is I want to support GMs to the benefit of players. And I want everybody to play for fun first. Now, what's that mean? Don't bog yourself down with too many rules or taking your world building so seriously. Just have fun. Don't stress it. If you're not playing this game for fun, then you're kind of doing it wrong the way that I do it. Right now, I know there's really no wrong way. The way you play is valid and wonderful, and always remember that. But I always feel that fun should be the first reason why you're playing tabletop games, because fun is how we have these moments where we get to be in these little worlds and live these little lives that they live for that little time. And if you're not having fun doing that, it kind of begs the question, what's the point of doing it? So want to support GMs for the benefit of the players. GMs having fun means players have fun. I want to represent and recommend independent game makers making rules-like games that are awesome. Also, some companies that do the same thing. I'm usually going to promote Theater of the Mind, but virtual tabletops are a thing, so utilize the free and easy ways that you can use those things now. I hope to show you how in a video of how I do that. I don't think I'm going to be blowing any minds there, but maybe give somebody a couple tips here and there. Let's just face it, guys. There's a sea of options out there. Of games, of tabletops, of rule systems, of philosophies even on how to run games. I'm hoping to kind of maybe declutter some of that for people that either like to jump from game to game or even at the same time say, I want a one and done system that's simple, that I can run games for the rest of my life. I hope to give you a little bit of both, because I dabble in a little bit of both, to be honest with you. So allow me to be the beacon in this sea of options, gathering you in as we try to figure out what are the best games to tell the stories we want and leave the fluff to the side if we can. The best that we can, of course. I love independent games. I also love artists and third-party creators that make these games great. So these are people I hope to support. I have artists in my family. I myself am creative in a sense that I enjoy to be creative and to do things in tabletops. It what drove me into tabletops, the outlet for creativity. So I hope to promote other people too, because if you don't have the time to be as creative, allow third-party people to help you, and then you add your little touches there to make it yours. On my channel, you will not see Dungeons and Dragons proper, the name brand, except for one time. That will be my next video where I go over the system and why I don't play it or promote it on my channel. That'll be a whole video of its own. I want to discuss games, ideas, and creativity on my channel and in the comments below and in the community I hope to build here. I really want this to be a creative effort for people taking these games and using them as a way to express their own creativity. And there's no wrong way to do that, with a caveat. I mean, I don't do a lot of the graphic stuff, and I don't think that people should when we're playing games. Now, when graphic, I don't mean graphic as in death. I mean, there's certain subjects that maybe just shouldn't be in tabletop games. And in my games specifically, religion and politics, real world religion and real world politics, no place in those games. I don't believe they belong in our tabletop games. If you want to do that, you do that. That's not for me. These are different worlds that have their own politics and things like that. And unless you're playing a role-playing game that's like a flipped version of reality, that's just not my thing. I'm big into home brewing, but also like to support third-party content. So please, both people, come on in and join us. Let your players add to the world is also part of the philosophy of the channel here. And we'll talk about ways to do that, give you some stories of how I've done it. Because I sure love these games and hope to pass that on to some other people. What's with the knife here? I collect knives. I'm going to have one on the table now and again. I'm putting it here clearly just so that somebody will ask me about it because I love it and I love to be able to talk about them. If you want to know more about the knife I'm featuring on any video, ask in the comments below. So to summarize everything, I'm looking for a community of people, mostly probably other GMs, but players are always welcome, of course, who love tabletop games, want to do it cheaply, want to be creative, and see this hobby grow and want to use it as the creative outlet I feel it is, who likes multiple games and multiple genres, maybe not too much into Dungeons and Dragons anymore, as I'm not, and also enjoys telling and creating stories where both players and GMs have fun. If that all sounds like something you want to do, please join me, join the channel, join the community, join the discussion below. I would love to have you and hear what you have to say. All that being said, let me give you some inspiration why I'm doing this. These are some of the channels that I've listened to over the years that have really echoed in my way of GMing and the way that I kind of look at tabletop games. We have channels like Dungeon Craft, Seth Skorkowski, Elite RPG, Pointy Hat, Bob the World Builder, Questing Beast, Dungeon Masterpiece, DM's Lair, How to Be a Great GM. And even though they're not doing current games, you can still look at their old posts, but web DM as well. Go check all these guys out. Listen to their advice. They've given me a lot of good stuff, and you might start to see where some of my ideas come from if you look at them too. But hey, shout out to all those guys. Love all of your guys' content. I'm honored to try to even be in the same realm as you are. Thank you for all your guidance over the years. So that being said, guys, again, this is my short introduction, probably longer than it should have been, but thanks for listening to me ramble. This is the Motley GM signing off saying, play for fun first, guys. Thanks for watching.